Hi there, this is Ranger Robert here in Daly Ranch in Escondido, California. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to demonstrate the proper technique to extract the nut that's inside this acorn shell here. First of all, I want to show you that the tools I'm going to be using is a pestle, and this is a small portable mortar. And the larger bedrock mortars that you might find throughout the county, a few of them are accessible to the public. Lake Wolford is a great place to go visit, and then we have a trail there. It'll take you right to a grouping of mortars. So I'm going to go ahead and demonstrate the technique. All right, so ready? I say it's a slippery little guy. It's not a very simple thing to do because you don't want to break the nut inside. You just want to take the shell off. And inside, underneath the shell, kind of like a peanut, it has that little paper husk on it. And you got to remove that too, because you don't want that to be part of your meal. This one's, there we go, you hear that crack? All right. Let's see, now we're just going to split that open. This one looks like a better nut inside here. Let's see. So you can see that this is a very tedious process. Trying to take this paper husk or the little thin husk here, this little skin, that is the hardest part of the whole process. The nut here is quite a bit fresh, so it has quite a bit of moisture still in it. So the paper peanut shell, husk here, this little paper thin thing, doesn't come off as easy. You can see I have removed some of it, but as it dries, it becomes increasingly more easier to remove that thin paper skin peanut type shell. So we'll just say that that's been removed, because this is going to take quite a bit of time, and the process is basically you're making it into powder and bringing it all up to it's not in its original form anymore. And as you can see, it becomes kind of like a little bit of a mush. I can feel that the moisture that's in it. You can just by the way it feels when the hammers come or the pestle's coming down on it. And you can see by doing that, some of that paper thin husk is starting to. If you continue to do this, it takes just more of a longer process to remove the paper that husk, because now you're contending with flour and you got some of that husk, and it just becomes a little more increasingly more difficult to remove that. But so the best process would be to keep that nut in the hole if it's still moist, and then let it dry on its own, and then work it as you check on your acorn nuts, just daily, and you see how increasingly how much more it's getting dry, and then you'll see how the husk starts to kind of crinkle and wants to pull away from it, and that's it. There's another process to this where you have to run it under some water until you keep running. You'd have to collect a whole bunch of this. So say about maybe a pound at a time. Then you would take it and put it in a basket that's designed, Indian basket that's designed to allow water to flow through it. So you put this in. You put your acorn meal inside of a basket, and you let the water. Typically, it would have been done near a running stream, and let the water just flow through your basket, and you're moving it around at the same time and and you're just moving it a bit so that what you're trying to do here is removing the tannic acids that are in the nut. If you don't do that, then you potentially can get sick because of the tannic acid that's in it. So you just keep flowing letting the water flow through until it becomes clear. And once it's clear, then you know that what you process is ready to go. And then you just let it dry. You can even cook it right away if you wanted to. You just have to boil it, and it becomes this kind of a mush, kind of like cream of wheat. Now you know a little bit about how acorns were used in this area, and you'll see plenty of acorns on the ground here. The coastal live oaks are right now it's that time of the year when they're falling, and this is and appropriately enough, fall. The acorn that I just broke up is the kalagi, or the black oak, which is not readily available in this area. You'd have to travel a little northeast of here, like towards Palomar. But the people here would travel. They would go the distance to collect these black acorns because they were the best for making the wee wish. And the coastal live oak acorns, well, they weren't exactly the best for making the wee wish, but they were still very edible, just as long as you're processing it the same way. And so when you come on out, you see the acorns on the ground. Now you know a little bit more about how acorns were used. And one more thing, the acorn woodpeckers that you see around the house, they're collecting these ones from off of these the coastal live oaks, and you'll hear them quite often pecking on something. And what they're doing is they're making the hole so they can store their acorn inside that hole. And then what the woodpecker will do is they'll wait for they're not going after the nut, they're waiting for the little worm that comes out of the nut, and that's their food source. So now you know a little bit more about the acorns out here and some more about the wildlife. Thanks for your attention. Hi, this is Ranger Robert here at Daly Ranch in beautiful Escondido, California. Today I'm going to talk to you a little bit about how to hunt for wood rats. And wood rats are, this is a representation of wood rat here. And they're about 8 inches body length, and the tail, but it adds another 6-7 inches to it. So the wood rats are probably about in total length, just about 14 inches, around there, that range. Still a very good size for a rat. Just so you know that the native peoples out here, they hunted for, everything was a food. Everything was something to eat. Wood rats were a delicacy, and virtually probably the easiest thing to hunt for. First of all, you need to go locate a wood rat nest, and those nests are fairly easy to find because they're very distinguishable amongst anything out in the vegetation, because you'll see these dome-shaped huts that are just a bunch of sticks just piled together, and that have all these holes or entrances and exits, and that's because they get preyed on by many things, so they want to be able to escape quickly. And wood rat nest, depending on the size, tells you a little bit about what the generations of families that are still living in there. Like a 5-foot tall wood rat nest here, there might be 10 generations of wood rats in there, and they all eat. And there's various compartments within the wood rat nest. So they have these little chambers that every little family inhabits in that one nest. So you go find a wood rat nest, like I already mentioned what that is, and normally you have someone else with you, just because, like I said, the wood rats want to escape. So what you want to do is you have your friend, your co-hunter, and he's the guy with the stick. And what he'll do, he'll find one of the entrances to the wood rat nest, and then jam his stick right into one of the holes, right? And then he shakes that nest. Doesn't destroy the nest, because then otherwise you're destroying the entire nest, and there's not going to be any more wood rats in that nest for a long time. So you just shake that that nest with your buddy's doing that the entire time, while you're at the other end with your trusty bow and arrow. These bows are made from the Arroyo Willow, and they're a very lightweight, not a very strong bow, but the intent is to hunt small game. And this is perfect for hunting the wood rats. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna pretend that this guy just came out of the hole, okay? And so now we're just gonna go ahead and then we're just gonna go ahead and, well, let's just imagine we got it right in the heart. So I'm gonna come over here. I'm gonna come over here now. I'm gonna grab my arrow, and he's been skewered. He's been skewered. All right. So, okay. Now, what we're gonna do now, we know he's a goner, and now he's just a ball of fresh meat. But what we want to do is we need to prepare this guy. You just can't eat him raw like this, right? No one wants to do that. So I have a fire going over here. I don't know if can you hear it roaring from over there? So it's just blazing. Actually, it shouldn't be blazing. It's just a small fire, just enough to do the preparation work and to also help heat up this rock right here, because this rock is going to be my cooking surface. All right. So what you want to do is you want to take and you want to find the business end of this little guy, right? And you want to jam a stick. It doesn't have to be the arrow, but I'm just going to use the arrow for this purpose, and so it's going to be just the stick. So now now we got it. It's like a skewer, and now you're going to put him over the fire, and you're going to rotate him around over the flames. And what we're doing here is we're singeing all the hairs off of this guy. So so now he's going to be all crispy, and it's going to get darkened. And then eventually you just pull him off, and he's still not ready to eat, right? But we're gonna rub all that burnt singe hair off of him. So now he's kind of looks like a hairless chihuahua. They're about the same size. So teacup chihuahuas, they're about this same size, right? All right, so rub all that fur off of him, and he's still not ready to eat. So now going back to the business end of this little guy again. So now you're going to jam your thumb in here, right? And you're going to just rip up. You're ripping up all the way up to under his jaw, and you're going to split him open. And then you're going to pull out all the innards out of here, all that nasty stuff. You want to keep the heart, you want to keep the liver. That's still good stuff. All right, you can just leave that in there. Pull everything else out, give it to your pet coyote, toss it off to one side. Okay, still not ready to eat. So what you want to do, now you're going to put him over the fire again. And now he's going to just sizzling away, because you want to make sure he's thoroughly cooked, because you know what, it's just like chicken, you want to make sure that he's thoroughly cooked, because you'll end up getting sick. So you're turning him around, he's over the fire, okay? Now, okay, I'm going to test this guy, put a little piece in my mouth. Oh, seems like he's done. But I have a couple other people with me that I want to help, want to feed also. This is not enough to feed one person, so I gotta do something with him. So what I want to do is I'm going to put him on this metate, and the metates are pretty much designated. You can grind many things on here, seeds and nuts and that, but the primary use is for meats and proteins. You can see it's different from the mortar. The mortar is more of a kind of a bowl cup shape, so there's quite a bit of difference. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my mano, which means hand, obviously, right? Hand, mano. And what you're going to do is you have to just smash, just come right down on him. And you're basically busting all the bones. Skull, bones, brain, the heart that's in there, right? Just keep mushing them up, right? Keep doing that until he's pretty much hamburger, just pulverized. So now what you want to do is you're gonna have to scrape this guy off, right? Because now he's stuck to the rock. Scrape him off, and you got this little nice tidy little ball of ground wood rat. Still not enough to feed the two guys that came with me to hunt this guy. So what I want to do, I just happen to have some acorn meal, which is great to help volumize this guy, like meatloaf. You know, our mom adds a little breadcrumb to the meatloaf, some egg, and it helps to volumize the meatloaf, right? So that's exactly what we're doing. You can add the acorn meal. You can add sage seeds to them, sage leaves if you wanted to for more seasoning. And then what you want to do, you basically just put them in your bowl, into a clay pot or clay bowl, and you take all those things I mentioned, and you put them. You just sprinkle as much as you want, and you just start to mix them in that bowl. You just mix them up really well. Just mush it in all really well. You're basically like you're making meatloaf. And then once you've done that, and you feel like, oh, okay, that's plenty. I think he's got plenty of seasonings, and he looks definitely a lot larger than what we started with. And over here, these rocks, this rock that's been sitting here on this fire, it's been sitting here for about half an hour or so, and that's plenty hot. In the evening time, what's cool, because I've actually done this in the evening time, and the rock will glow. I can remove the rock and put it in a different location, and it's the coolest thing to see. And the kids get fascinated by that. So how can you possibly cook on a rock? Well, they do get hot enough, and it's sufficient, and it's plenty sufficient for cooking this little guy up. So okay, so now we're just gonna smush him down, make into a patty. This rock is nice and hot. Psst, sizzling sounds. Psst. Get it? All right. Turn them over. Psst. Normally you would have some kind of, some utensil like a stick or something. You don't really need a whole lot to flip these guys over, and you just cook them until he's to the tenderness or where you feel like he's ready to eat, and that's pretty much it. Then you scrape them off the rock, because most likely you're going to have some tidbits of meat, wood rat on the rock. That's still very edible, and now you can share with the other two guys that came with you. So now you know how to cook a wood rat here at Daly Ranch. Bon appetit. This is Ranger Robert saying, see you later.